Welcome back to the channel. So on this episode, we have got a lot of stuff going on in the shop. It has been a very busy week, so let's get to it. You're watching the Vasco Speed Performance YouTube channel. Well, the engine has arrived for the 73 Camaro. So this is a Mike Lau built 427 cubic inch LS. What we're going to work on doing today is the customer has a motor plate and he has an alternator, and this is an aftermarket block. So there's some bosses here that aren't normally there. Plus he was concerned about these drains. So what we're going to do is we're going to work on getting the motor plate and the alternator situation figured out on this. And we're probably going to have to end up having some things milled, but not a big deal. We will make it work. So let's get after it. Okay, so this will probably give you a little bit better idea what we're dealing with. So this is our bracket that we need to fit on, and it's going to go on right like, oh, if I flip it around the right direction, right like that. The issue is it needs to be in like this, and it needs to fit like that. However, this boss sticks out a little bit here. So all that really needs to happen is a little bit just needs to be milled out right in here. So I think I say that. The other thing you'll notice is that this corner is square and this corner has a radius on it. And so when you stick this up there, it doesn't want to go into that corner. So you either are down to clearancing this corner or trying to mill a more flat corner there. I would much rather not modify the block, so it looks like we're going to go ahead and modify this. So I'm going to do some marking on this, and then we will get with our machine shop and do some milling. Okay, so I came up with an idea. This is the motor plate for it. It's already fit for the car, so we really don't want to do a whole lot with it. So I thought to myself, if we come in here and we mill this, it's pretty close to this bolt hole. Now, is this bolt hole even going to get used? I'm not for sure. I'll need to bolt the alternator up and find out. However, I thought, well, rather than machining it out, what if we were just to use a spacer? So I found some bolts and I spaced this whole thing over. That would prevent you from having to mill it. And the other thing that this might help is then you would have some clearance for your drain, because the drain's pretty close to the alternator. That being said, when I went to go put this in here, our motor plate, these already have holes for this bracket. So I assume ITC Billet makes the motor plate and the bracket, which is really nice because this is just going to add some strength to it. So when we go to do the alternator, you're going to cut a majority of this out. So rather than cutting the majority of this out, you're going to lose quite a bit of strength for the amount of material that's going to come out of here. So what I'm thinking about doing is milling the bracket the way we were talking about. And yes, it's going to come close to this, but I think it just needs to be done. Then this will be back in the original spot. Then what I think we're going to do is this should be a 1/4 inch motor plate. We're going to take a 1/4 inch of spacing out of those. And then I still feel we're still going to have to machine some of the motor plate out, but I just think that that's going to be a stronger, better route. So let's get after it. Okay, after doing some more looking and putting the motor plate in there, I think I'm going to end up sticking the engine in, getting it in there, and then once it's in, we're going to try and figure out how much clearance we have, because I don't want to go through all this work and put this thing in and then the alternator not work, and he may end up having to get a whole nother bracket or something. So in the meantime, let's get this engine at least set in there. In order to do that, I need to, one, cut this brace out of this mid plate. Also, it's a steel mid plate, so we don't want that rusting. So we're gonna throw some paint on that real quick, get it bolted up to the back of the motor, get the motor off of the engine stand, and probably get the mid plate put on and the motor plate put on and get the engine stabbed just to see where we're at and kind of go from there. Okay, well that's drying. I figured I'd start with getting the motor plate put on. So there's going to be a gasket between here and here, and then there'll be a gasket between here and the water pump. He's got this brand new Aeromotive water pump. I didn't even know Aeromotive made water pumps. So this is a pretty cool deal. It's super nice. It's black anodized. It's got a nice pump on it with, you know, some good leads on it. So pretty decently thick wire. Haven't got to ever use one or see one of these. So I'd say so far it looks pretty nice. We'll probably end up putting a connector on this for him so that it makes it easier to work on. So probably put some loom on that and do that too while we have it. But one thing is it came with some supplied bolts. The issue with that is the bolts are designed just to go through the gasket into the block, not a motor plate. So found some longer bolts, and we will get that mounted and see how it looks. Okay, so we got the water pump on, and it's got some pretty decently thick wire on here. So we are going to, I don't like just having wire look like that, so I'm gonna put some heat shrink and some wire loom on it and put a connector on it. We're gonna be using a Deutsch style connector. So I actually have some for thicker gauge wire, just 2-pin stuff for like water pumps and fans and stuff like that. So I'll do a time lapse of me putting that on. Okay, we got the engine in. It is all bolted to the motor plate. So now what we will do is we will kind of stick everything up here for the alternator situation, figure out what's going on there. So I'll probably lift it up in the air. Also, he has limiters for it, so I'll go ahead and put the limiters on there and see how those fit. Kind of start putting some parts together and see how this thing how it looks. So far, so good though. Okay, so we are definitely going to have to mill the bracket as we talked about. I went ahead and put this in here because I know this bolt locates here, and then there's just 2 other bolts that go into that plate, which we'll have to mill before we can put that in. But once that's figured out, then we'll have to drill the holes for this also, and this one goes into, I believe, the alternator, so there's nothing here, I think, but there might end up being a 3rd hole here. So in order to do that, what we need to do is get the plate milled first. Once that's milled, then we can stick the alternator up here and trace how much of this we're gonna have to cut out. We are most likely gonna have to cut out some of this motor plate bracket that's welded to the car. And then it creates an issue with the alternator is so thick, the distance between here and out is gonna change. Also, we've already spaced it out 1/4 of an inch because we're bolting it to the motor plate. Otherwise, we would have to machine this whole piece out to make it that way, which I would much rather leave the motor plate fully intact and then just take 1/4 inch off of each one of these spacers to get my spacing correct. So that's probably what we're gonna end up doing, but we will play it by ear. But first we're gonna have to get that one piece milled. So once that's milled, we can go from there. Okay, so I have this fuel filter mounted. I wanted it to be in a spot where you could get to this lever. So this is probably one of my favorite filters that Aeromotive sells. It's got a check valve on it so that you can literally close this and you're not gonna have to drain the entire tank. And say you need to work on the fuel pump or change a filter or something, boom, you got that. Keeps all the fuel in there. It's a little bit more expensive. I want to say these are closer to 400 bucks, but it's well worth it with that check valve. You could always get an extra check valve and just put it here, but I like how it's built into the filter. It just makes it nice and clean. So that being said, we don't have the pump. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a -12 union female to -12 union female to put in here. And then we'll have the pump there. And then we'll have a soft line from here to the post filter. So on the post filter, I don't have a bracket for it. So I designed a new bracket for the fuel filter we have, and this is what I came up with. So Looks relatively simple, but let me get it bent up and I'll show you how it works. Okay, so when it comes to this thing, you could put this in a roller and do it, or you can do it the way I do it, and you just put it in the brake. And so I'm just going to mark out every probably a 1/4 inch and just mark it and put some bends in it, and that'll basically curve this. And I have the filter, so I'll curve it to the filter, so I'll do a time lapse of that. Okay, so here's what we have. I got off on my measurements. I was going to do 1/4 inch, I ended up doing 1/2 inch. So the fuel filter will just go right in there like that. And then I actually left some reliefs here, and this is for like a hose clamp, so we'll just put hose clamps on it. So let's get this thing mounted. Okay, so I went ahead and pulled the gas tank out because we got to put a dash 12 bung on it. So we're going to cut the 10 off, weld the 12 on it. And then I'm going to put a bulkhead in here for the dash 8 return, and it'll go into the gas tank itself also. But before I do that, I want to get that on there, and then we're going to cut this out so we can get our line done there. We're still waiting on some dash 8 line to show up for this thing. I don't know if I've shown you the full car, but this thing is a beauty. So 1973 Camaro. The guy spared no expense on it. It's a big tire car with an LS, so it's got a Mike Lau 427 that's going in it. He brought me the intake the other day. Got the intake just setting on here, got the fuel rails on, so you have the ability to go dual rails if you wanted to. I believe I actually have these on incorrect, so this actually needs to be on that side and that side needs to be on this side, but nevertheless, I'll fix that. But one of the things I was looking at is I mounted the fuel pressure regulator here because you can't put it on the firewall according to NHRI rules, so that's why I went ahead and tried to find another spot. But without having the turbo kit piping and everything, knowing where I was going to go, I was like, man, I don't know. He went ahead and bought Up and Forward Stainless Works headers. Beautiful, beautiful headers. Great product. Super, super close to those beautiful valve covers, so that'll be fun. But if he ceramic coats them, I think that might help a little bit. But nevertheless, we've got a dash 8 return, and that goes straight down, and I'm going to run that along here, and then it'll run back and go back to the back of the car. The 2 feed lines for after the Y will come up and go into the back of the rails, and then these are going to go to here. So what I was thinking about doing was putting 90s and 45s, but if you put a 45 on here, you've only got that much line. It's a pretty short line. The problem with that is if you're not dead nuts on when you're making that line, that it makes it really, really difficult. So I came up with a different plan. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 180s on. So this will 180 go back direction to this one, and this will go 180 back to that one. So I don't have any of the dash 8 180s in stock, so I'm going to head to order some of those. That way I have them, but once they show up, then we can knock out those lines. That shouldn't be too bad. So let's look underneath and see how it looks. Okay, we're underneath the car again. I have the post filter mounted up here with the bracket that we made, and then this hose will just go over here to our pump. Obviously this will go from here to there. The hose comes up down through here, runs along through here, and this is like a double-sided zip tie, so this will actually just go like that. The problem with it is trying to find a deal that can bolt to something that has a dash 10 and a dash 8 is kind of hard. You could 3D print them or buy somebody that 3D prints them, but I found these zip ties that work pretty good. They're pretty inexpensive and they don't look bad. I just have to drill this bolt hole out a little bit bigger for a 1/4 bolt, and then I just put rib nuts into the tube, and so it comes right along through here. And of course this is going to be for our return, that's why I don't have the zip tie on that, so it'll come up to here, and then we have our Y block. And I went ahead and made this bracket to push the Y block off so that it would clear for this and be able to give you plenty of room for your fittings. And then I'm going to put a 45 on this one and a 45 on that one. I also made this little bracket right here for our brake line. And then the 2 fuel lines will come up and run into the back of the rails. Pretty simple. So it's kind of cool. You can see this little hairline crack right there. right there. That is where the old fitting was at. So what I like to do is come in there and sand that down and then just pop that boy off of there. And then that gives you the original hole that they used. Now, our hole is going to be bigger, so we'll have to grind it out a little bit, but we'll definitely get it back on there. Okay, well, the customer dropped off the final part, the fuel pump for this beast, and that'll be the last thing. We'll have the whole entire fuel system done. So we have a -12 line coming in to the pre-filter. We have a -12 union, and then we'll have the pump. And then I just got to make a short line after I mount the pump from here to the post filter. That goes up, runs up along here, all nice and neat, crosses through. We actually use these. I found them on Summit's website, and I went and looked them up, found them on Amazon for a little bit cheaper, of a better price for what it is. It's basically a double-sided zip tie with a hole in it. I use a 1/4-20 on it, so I have to drill this hole out, and then I just put nutserts into the tubes, and then just run this lines all the way up here. Turned out pretty cool. Designed this bracket to elevate the Y block off of the frame. Part of the reason there is I like things to be removable, makes it easier to work on. There were already 2 threaded bolt holes here, so I made the bracket off of that. Same with the Y. It's got nutserts in it, so you don't have to sit there and put a wrench on the backside, so you just put those in. And then we have these 2 lines going up to the rails. And then we have the return. I put a bulkhead in the mid plate. So other than running it down underneath here and it trying to chafe on this mid plate, it just goes through there safe and sound. And then if you need to ever take it off, you can literally just take this off and you're good. And then the return comes up through here, runs long through there. I put a mount on it to try and help it again from chafing on the mid plate or the motor plate, and then it goes up to the regulator. Okay, so when I mounted this fuel filter, I was trying to think everything out. So, that being said, I went and took some measurements off the fuel pump on my car, came over here, started looking at it, and I did a measurement from, let me see, this is the customer's fuel pump. If you don't know about the brushless 5.0, that is a hell of a pump. I've been running it on my car for a while. Matthew just put one on his Mustang. He's had really good luck with it. Great pump. You ever need one? Plus, they're local to Kansas City, so we got to support local companies. Aeromotive, it's the way to go. Anyways, this is the variable fuel pump. So you got power, ground, and then you got a yellow wire. And the yellow wire, you can actually use your Holly to control it. So one of the issues we had back in the day, what would happen is that it would use so much fuel going up to the engine, and the engine wouldn't actually consume it. It would take it and put it back into the gas tank. When it did that, it just kept doing it over and over again. What would happen is it would superheat the fuel, and it would change the fuel composition, and your fuel trims would be all whack, and we wouldn't know what it was. And it was because fuel was going up there, getting hot, coming back, and just recirculating, and eventually the gas tank turned into a miniature hot tub. So cool thing about this pump is it's variable, so you can actually make it go off of boost or TPS or whatever you want to set up in Holly. So the customer elected to go with that option. It's the same pump, it's just they changed the end and you have an extra wire. So pretty cool. Anyways, back to the pump. So I took the measurement from the center of this fitting to the edge of that, and I want to say it was like 2.5 inches. Let me get the measure out. Yep, about 2.5 inches. So when I mounted the fuel filter, I came up with the idea, I have this 90-degree fitting, and then I just did a male to male -12. I measured over the 2.5 inches, so it should line up, and we should just be able to mount the pump to there. So let's see how this thing fits. Well, the fuel pump and everything lined out perfectly, just how I was thinking. Went right on there. So it should be really, really good. Like the way it all turned out, clean, thought out. You know, you got your union here, and I wanted to mount this here first before I made this line, but everything should be easy to work on. If we end up wiring the car, we'll end up putting a Deutsch connector on this and put some loom on it so you don't see the wires hanging out, but try to make everything look clean and thought out and have a place. So turned out really good. So the fuel system's done on this, so on to the next project. I'm not sure what we're gonna do on this one. We talked about messing with some of the headers and stuff, but we can go up there and address that issue and talk about that real quick. Well, we got the engine stabbed in and all the plumbing and everything done. I ended up getting these 180s in. My intent was to make them both go over here, but with the motor plate and everything, it didn't work out exactly the way I wanted it. So I just had one going front and one going back. And then obviously the back rails are done too. We have this right here. So I'm actually going to switch this fitting out for one with a 1/8 NPT ORB or 1/8 inch NPT fitting in the side of it, and we'll actually put our fuel pressure sensor like so. Holley always comes with it right here, and it's like gotta be here, so most people usually end up mounting the regulator off of the rail, but then it's kind of a heavier part. I like to mount it securely, so we put it down here because he's gonna have a air to water intake and an intake going over it, so we should have plenty of room there. NHRA rules don't want you to put this on the firewall, so that's why I try to avoid doing that. But the issue that we're going to have with these headers is how close they are to here. So he just came out today, and we're probably going to end up cutting them and moving them out or figuring out something. We might end up just cutting them at the flange at the top and then rocking them out. I don't know. We'll kind of see how it works, but he wants to get a little bit more clearance for these, and I don't blame him. That's going to be an issue. So if you could get it out to about halfway between here, it would probably be good. So we will see what we got to do there, but the next project is working on the alternator, so that'll be the next thing. Well, I mentioned a new car got dropped off. Well, this is it. This is a 1955 Bel Air. How cool is that? So what we are going to be doing to this is we are putting a Ride Tech 4-link suspension on it and a 9-inch. So the customer went ahead and already had the 9-inch ready to go. It's got the gears and everything ready. There are no brackets or anything on it, which is perfect for what we're doing because we're going to end up making some and welding some onto it if it doesn't come with the kit. But yeah, a little bit about the car. So it's a 55 Bel Air. Got a big block Chevy. I'm pretty sure it's got a turbo 100 and soon to be 9-inch. So this thing's going to be pretty much bulletproof and should be good to go. So we're excited to get going on this. Well, Matthew's making good progress. He's got the rear end out, and we're putting this bracket in here. So this kit's made by Ride Tech. It's a pretty decent kit. It's got like little brackets here for your parking brakes and stuff like that. And then you got your 4-link brackets here, and then I'm pretty sure that this is going to be for a diagonal link in there to keep it straight. But yeah, so it's going together pretty good. What do you think about it so far?
I like it.
I mean, other than there's a bunch of rust and everything on the ground, because it's just it's a pretty rusty old car, but it's pretty cool that somebody's actually, keeping her on the road. So he's got some work ahead of him on it, but it'll be pretty cool to see this thing with a new rear end in it, and hopefully him out there, enjoying it. So making progress. Okay, so we just had another car got dropped off, so let's check it out. Okay, well, this is Tim's beautiful Buick Grand National. So this car's been around the Kansas City community for a while now. It was LS swapped way back in the day by a couple of the street racers around here, and so they built a turbo kit on it, but it's a turbo LS with a 480E. Really cool car. He brought it to us because he has an exhaust leak, and part of it was that the merge has a crack in it. So we actually pulled part of the turbo kit off, this part over here, so that's where this pipe comes up and this pipe comes up and merges together. So we have it over on the bench, so let me go show you what we're dealing with. Well, I'm going to go ahead and drain the fluid on the transmission since it's going to have to come out. So I'm going to let that drain while I'm working on other stuff, and then I'll pull it all out and we'll see if we can find what's broke with it. Okay, well, I got the transmission out. Didn't take that long. Honestly, it's a race car, so it's meant to be easier. But went ahead and drained the majority of the transmission fluid out of it. I got the torque converter just chilling over here. Note, I am not a transmission tech, nor have I really worked on transmissions, but hey, I'm here to learn, so let's try it. So, from everything I see, you need to take the trans pan off and then pull the valve body off, and then we can take the pump off. So, let's flip this thing upside down and see if we can get the pan off. Okay, so we snapped this intermediate shaft on the car, and you can see where it just sat there and rode a little bit. And I honestly didn't even know that it was broke. But if you see this, it goes and it stops. So the other piece that's in there has the same thing. So I tried pulling it out with a magnet, it won't come out. So my buddy Mitch came by, and we are going to pull the rest of this thing out since I'm not experienced in transmissions. And we're going to see if we can find that other broken part. I swear. I was like, heck yeah, we got it, all fits together, it's stacked good. And then I like look over and I'm like, oh yeah, this goofy thing's supposed to go in there. It's okay, we've done it once, we can do it again. It's like the scene from The Office whenever they open the box they should have opened. And he's like, he leaves his phone in the box and they have to go cut it back open. I was like, well, we did it once, we could do it again.
Of course the fucking pump's gonna... Got that grip strength. How far down you gotta go to...
I don't know, we'll figure it out.
He said, I don't fucking know. That don't look like nothing I've ever fucking seen before.
Yeah, it goes right here and it holds this. It's like a deal that just...
Son of a bitch.
Yeah, that bolt's in there. And I don't know who made this thing. It looks pretty nice.
That's where the silicone came from.
Oh, I know, but it's like kind of a weird deal. But there's a hole in the side of it, so we got to put it in there. So I guess we'll time lapse it again. Well, after a few times of taking it apart and putting it back together, because I forgot parts, it's together. Everything's stacked good, so I think it's going to be all right. We're going to work on, I say we, me, I'm going to work on stabbing that in there and getting this thing back together. Like I said, I'm not a transmission tech, so hopefully everything works good, but I think it should. It went together relatively easy. I didn't fight anything, so we'll see how it goes. Well, you know what this means. It has made it off the lift, and it has forward gears. I took it out, drove it around the block, went through first, second, and third. I think we're good, but again, we'll have to put some miles on it to make sure. But yeah, the Camaro is back together finally. So now that means that with this thing done, I don't have to focus as much time or worrying about it. I can focus on spending some time on the old shop car. So that being said, it's good to go. I wanted to give you a little bit of update on Mike's car. He came by last week. We threw the rear end in, and he went ahead and brought the wheels out. So he wanted to keep this thing old school, so I wanted to kind of show you what he's going to do. So these are the wheels that he picked. Well, let me show you the fronts. So originally he was going to run these. These are Billet Specialties, which pretty cool looking wheel. He had the rears to match, but let's see what he ended up switching up. You ready for this? Oh yeah, center lines. So these are actually a center line 2, I believe is what he told me. But yeah, so he ended up going with some center lines. It's kind of a cool thing. I mean, they're not my first choice, but they're not a bad looking wheel. I mean, and again, it kind of goes with the old school vibes. So he actually said he's going to bead lock it. So I think that'll be pretty sweet. But yeah, so I figured I'd show you guys that. And we were looking at it also. So this is how she looks with the rear end and the wheels and everything. Looks pretty freaking good. I'm not going to lie. One thing we're going to do is he ordered the rear end at 50 inches from end to end. We're probably going to take, I think we talked 1.25 inches off. So we're probably going to cut the ends off and move them in 1.25 inches. One reason is, if you look right now, the rear end actually needs to go that way. But that being said, we haven't even messed with the control arms and stuff. So the rear end needs to go over that way a little bit, but look how much room he's got. And this is a 325 on this thing, so tons of room. So we don't have the rotors on it, so that's about a 1/4 inch. So we're gonna move it in that, and then he wants to probably go another inch in. So we're gonna be moving both of those in. But we're pretty busy this week since everything's going on. So we probably only have a chance to work on this one this week, but that's in an upcoming episode. So stay tuned for that. It is Friday, and so we are on our way to Boost and Barbecue at our local drag strip. Our local drag strip is Flying H. It is an amazing facility. If you have not been there at least once, make sure you go out and support your local track. But it's been raining off and on today, so I went ahead and worked at the shop, and I'm like, man, it's starting to clear up. You can kind of see in the background a little bit cloudy, but I'm going to go out to the drag strip. We're going to see how it goes, and hopefully this rain stays away, and hopefully we get to see some cars making some passes.
Over the edge, feel like I'm floating through the air. The pain I felt is paid for, all is said and done. Oh, I am restricted, fixed upon the web. I need to kick the habit.
Well, it is day 2 here at Flying H Drag Strip. So I came out last night. I was planning on trying to get some footage. I didn't get a whole lot. The track itself, they didn't hardly make any passes, if any at all, to my knowledge, because of the rain and everything. So, but we're here now, so let's see how it goes.
My mind is breathing in, break out, I've got to see. Spent all my life holding all of it closely. I played it innocent, a feel of discontent. I'm finally facing it all, fearless.
So we're at the track, and you know who this guy is. So he actually got here on what? Thursday night, and
Thursday day.
Thursday day?
Yeah, my boss let me leave early.
Wow.
You should get a better boss.
I know, my boss sucks. Probably not the only person that says that.
Right.
But, anyways, so you came out here to Flying H and you made a pass because it was a track run, right?
Yep.
And how'd you do?
First run, went up there, spun at 0.6.
Okay.
Next run, turned it down a little, went 0.998 to the 60.
Wow.
Not 999.
Wow.
Not 1.00.
That's insane.
It started with a 0.
Wow. Is that the first time for you?
Yeah. I don't radial race. That's like my 10th radial run.
Right. So would you say that you're happy with the LS?
For sure.
It's special because it's a V12 LS, but
Right.
still. Okay, cool.
V8 probably wouldn't have done it.
Okay.
An 8-cylinder, it's an 8-cylinder, but it's the V12 version.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That I get confused.
Yeah.
But cool.
But went out there, hit wheelie control because it was on a rip.
Yeah.
It was overlaying the data, guesstimated it would have went 388-ish.
On a small tire,
275.
275.
Yeah.
Wow.
If I could have made the complete run,
Okay.
0.9 to the 60, probably 190-ish, and would have been upper 380s.
Well, you always have the next time.
I know.
Yep. So,
But like I was saying, hit wheelie control, did some funny stuff with the timing, and the nitro didn't like that. So
oh, okay.
gonna have to get it apart.
So I heard something.
Hurt something
Yeah.
in there.
Okay. Well,
Don't see any exit wounds on the engine, but something is weird with it.
Okay.
And instead of going out there and continuing to beat on it,
for sure.
loaded it back up in the trailer and
Cool. Well, check out Joey's channel because I'm sure he'll have the details on what he finds. So
Yep.
make sure you go and check into that. So let's get back to the action. Well, it was a good day at the track. We got to see some cars make some passes, which is awesome. The rain held out for the most part. It's starting to sprinkle a little bit. I got to run home and take care of the puppy dogs, but really, really cool event. So I'm excited to see the one in the fall. So I talked to Justin, the owner of the event, and he told me that it's going to be called RPM Revival in the spring. So hopefully we'll have the Camaro ready and we can make it out to that and we can do some racing there. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. So as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Sorry that this episode was a little later than usual. We had a busy week, but we're going to try and get the second one out this week too. So bear with us. But again, appreciate everyone coming by the channel. Catch you on the next one.